morning to good morning, friends. Today shall discuss about introduction to transpiration and stomatal types. I am P.T. Mallikarjuna, Associate Professor, Government Hospital College, Lanka, Bangalore. So today the topic contains types of transpiration, significance of transpiration, the structure, types, and distribution of stomata. Well, let us begin with the introduction. So transpiration is an important physiological process of plants. In this process, the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts takes place. Due to transpiration, about 98% of absorbed water is lost by the plants. For instance, in a tropical legume called Epirua purpurea tree, 300 gallons of water is lost in a day. Only 1 to 2% of absorbed water utilizes by the plants. The significance of transpiration is that it is a vital and unavoidable process. According to Curtis, transpiration is necessary to develop plants because it involves in the translocation of water from the root to the aerial parts. It also involves in the translocation and distribution of mineral nutrients by acting as a transpiration pull or tension in the plant body. It plays an important role in the thermal regulation or cooling of leaves. It allows the gaseous exchange, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, which are important for photosynthesis and respiration. It also plays an important role in water balance to maintain our gut pressure. Well, based on the structures which are involved in the transpiration, there are three types of transpiration in plants, namely the stomatal transpiration, reticular transpiration, and reticular transpiration. Stomatal transpiration is the loss of water from the aerial parts from the plant, especially from the leaves, in the form of vapor through the very important minute apertures present on the part stomata into the surrounding is called stomatal transpiration. Well, it is a major type of transpiration which is accounts for 90% of the water lost by the plants. Well, this is the leaf anatomy, which is indicating the loss of water in the form of vapor from high water vapor to from the leaf internal structure to the surroundings, low water vapor in the diffuses, and in the meantime, the change of carbon dioxide, that is from outside to inside, is going to be observed. Next, cuticular transpiration. A thin or thick waxy cuticle usually covers the aerial parts of the plants, especially on the surface of leaves and fruits. About 5% water loss in the form of vapor takes place through the cuticle, and it is higher in fruits than leaves. Further, within the leaf, among the leaves, older leaves have more cuticular transpiration than that of younger leaves. So this is the surface, outer surface, as you know, both the upper surface as well as lower surface of the leaves are covered by thick or thin cuticle, and that cuticle is the one through which the water evaporates to some extent, and that is known as cuticular transpiration. Third one is known as lenticular transpiration, and this transpiration takes place, as you know, on the surface of the branches as well as main stem. You have woody stem having white color structures on here, and these are called lenticels. And this is the sectional view of the white color structure, and these are called lenticels. and these lenticels are also involved in the loss of water from plant body, but it is very, very less. Only 0.1% of water is lost in the form of vapor, and this is called lenticular transpiration. Well, coming to the stomata, very important, which is responsible for the stomatal transpiration, the major type of transpiration. Let us discuss about the structure and distribution and types of stomata. Well, the term stomata is actually derived from a Greek word stoma, which means mouth-like structure. And these are microscopic pores or apertures on the surface of epidermis of leaves, flowers, fruits, and young stems. Well, stoma is singular, stomata plural. The term stomata was actually coined by Heinrich Link way back 1827 and discovered by Marcello Malpighi in 1674. More number of stomata are usually present on the leaf surface and shall cover 1 to 2% of leaf area. Stomata occurs, Stomata occurs in all land plants, that is from mosses to angiosperms, whereas these stomata not usually found in algae, fungi, and in some liverworts. Well, the number of stomata ranges from 1000 to 60,000 per square centimeter of the leaf area, depending on the plant species. The size and shape of stomata and guard cells vary from plant to plant, with end-to-end lengths ranging from 10 to 80 micrometers length and width of, width of a few to 50 centimeters, 50 micrometers. The stomatal frequency is the number of stomata per unit area and useful in assessment of transpiration rate. Stomatal ratio is the ratio of stomatal frequency on the adaxial surface to the abaxial surface of the same leaf. Well, the term stomatal index was actually coined by Salisbury, 1928, which denotes the number of stomata to the number of epidermal cells in a given area. Coming to the structure of stomata, a typical stoma is usually possess a pair of highly specialized and metabolically active bean or kidney-shaped guard cells that surrounding an elliptical pore or aperture called stomatal aperture. These are further surrounded by a few specialized adjacent epidermal cells called accessory or subsidiary cells. The stomatal complex, which includes an aperture, a pair of guard cells, and a few subsidiary cells. So this is the structural view about the stomatal complex. You can see here a pair of guard cells from the topical view, and these are the adjacent subsidiary cells, and as you know, these are the uh, lateral epidermal cells, and this is the what we call this structure in an aperture, a pair of guard cells and subsidiary cells, collectively called as stomatal complex. And here you can in this diagram you can see you both are being shaped what you call guard cells, and this is the aperture, and you can also observe the uneven thickness of the guard cell wall, and also guard cells you can are distinct from the epidermal neighboring epidermal cells by having of chloroplast and vacuoles and other things. And these are bean-shaped guard cells, which are very common in plants. But here also you can see dumbbell, what you call it, dumbbell-shaped guard cells, especially in grasses. Well, come to the Structure of the guard cells. Guard cells are specialized cells either of bean or kidney shape or dumbbell shape. They have unevenly thickened cell walls, that is, the outer side thin walls facing towards subsidiary cells, and the inner side thick walls facing towards the aperture. Further, the walls possess the radial myceliation of cellulose microfibrils, an important feature for stomatal regulation. Usually, the cells, normal cells, are having horizontally uh, arranging type of radial cellulose microfibrils, whereas the guard cells usually have radially oriented cellulose microfibrils inside the cell wall, and those are actually responsible for the, as you know, classic state or turgid state of the guard cells during the stomatal regulation. Well, the guard cell protoplast, as I already told you, is with a large central vacuole, many chloroplasts, mitochondria, and a single nucleus. Furthermore, they are having plasma-desmata connections with adjacent subsidiary cells, which is also a very important property in order to in a, in order to take place endosmosis and exosmosis of water. Coming to the types and the distribution of stomata, the number and arrangement of stomata in plants are highly variable. The stomata can be classified based on the number and nature of the subsidiary cells into 8 types, and this classification and type of stomata were actually carried out by several scientists, which are few are very important among those. These are West 1889, Metcalf and Chart 1962, Stace 1965. The first one is known as anamocytic or ranunculation type. In this type of stomata, the guard cells are not surrounded by distinct subsidiary cells, but surrounded by normal epidermal cells. These are very common in the family Ranunculaceae, and therefore it is also known as Ranunculaceous type. Anisocytic type or crucifer type. So the term itself is indicating aniso means unequal subsidiary cells, presence of unequal subsidiary cells, and in this the stoma is surrounded by 3 subsidiary cells, of which 2 are equal. Third one may be smaller or larger. In case of parasitic or rubiaceous type, the stoma is surrounded by 2 parallelly arranged subsidiary cells. This is very common in the family Rubiaceae, and therefore it is also known as rubiaceous type. Third one is diacytic or caryophyllaceous type. Here, in this type of stomata, the stomata is surrounded by 2 subsidiary cells that are arranged perpendicular to the guard cells, and common in Caryophyllaceae, a diparticle family, and therefore it is also known as Caryophyllaceous type. Well, fourth one is and fifth one are very common in monocots. Especially fourth one is very common in sedges and grasses, and it is known as gramineous type. In these, the 2 dumbbell-shaped guard cells are sandwiched by 2 parallelly arranged subsidiary cells. And this type of stomata is the characteristic feature of 2 monocotyledonous families, namely grasses and sedges. Whereas tetracyclic type of stomata, where 4 subsidiary cells are surrounding the guard cells, of which 2 are laterals and 2 are polar in orientation. And this type of stomata is very common in monocots. And seventh one is called actinocytic stomata. And here the stomata is surrounded by, you can see here, by more than five or more than five radially oriented subsidiary cells and looks like a star-like structure, and therefore it is known as actinocytic stomata. And it is found in certain plants like Euclea, pseudo, pseudovenus, Ancistrocladus of family Ebenaceae. And the last one is known as cyclocytic stomata, where the soma is surrounded by four or more subsidiary cells which form one or two narrow rings around the guard cells. So here this illustration clearly indicates the different types of stomata like anomocytic stomata. Here you can see the stroma that is the aperture and guard cell, not surrounded by distinct subsidiary cells, but epidermal cells are there, and it is known as anomocytic stomata. Whereas in case of anisostomata, you can see three yellow colored subsidiary cells, and these two are same in size. The third one is small in size. In case of parasitic stomata, you can see here two subsidiary cells are there, which are parallel to the guard cells. Whereas in gramineaceous also similar type is there, but here the guard cell shape is dumbbell shape. That is the only difference between parasitic and gramineaceous. And in tetracytic, four are there subsidiary cells. Out of four, two are lateral in position, two are in polar in position. And actinocytic, as you all know, so many subsidiary cells are there, and these are arranged in like a stellate or star-like structure. Whereas in diacytic, only two subsidiary cells are there, but these are perpendicular to the guard cells. And in cyclocytic stomata, two orals of subsidiary cells are there, and these are called cyclocytic stomata. So this is a major type of classification of stomata based on the number and nature of the subsidiary cells of the stomata. Now coming to the second type of classification, which is based on the number and distribution of the stomata on the surface of the leaf into five types. Well, apple and mulberry type of stomata, which is also known as hypostomatic type, where the stomata are distributed only on the lower surface of the leaves and more prominent in trees. So here in hypostomatic stomata, the stomata are confined to only to the lower surface of the leaves, and it is very common in tree species. Second one is known as potato type or amphistomatic type. So here the stomata are distributed on both the surfaces, that is the upper surface and lower surface, but more number will be found on the lower surface. Third one is known as gramineaceous type, where the stomata occur on both the surfaces of the leaf in equal proportion, more common in isobilateral leaves like in grasses, and therefore it is also known as gramineaceous type. Fourth one is water lily type or epistomatic stomata, where the stomata occurs only on the upper surface of leaf, and especially in floating hydrophytes is very commonly distributed. And therefore, this is also known as epistomatic type. And last one is known as Potamogeton type or astomatic type, where usually the stomata are absent on both the surfaces, but if they are present, they are functionless. So these are the five different types of stomata based on the distribution. Okay, epistomatic, amphistomatic, gramineaceous, hypostomatic, and astomatic. So To conclude this session, transpiration is the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant. The major type of transpiration is the somatal transpiration. Well, a typical soma contains somatal aperture and also somatal complex. Somatal aperture includes an aperture surrounded by a pair of guard cells, and these somatal apertures are surrounded by few specialized subsidiary cells collectively called somatal complex. Well, based on the number and orientation of subsidiary cells with regard to the guard cells, somata are of 8 types, and this is with this I conclude about today's session.